Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another Monday night live stream. How the hell is everybody? I hope everybody is nice and safe in the UK with the winds and the storms that are going on at the minute. I saw some pretty nasty pictures. I think it was Kev from Hassle Free had been sharing some stuff, and some of the guys in my Patreon Discord group were sharing some pictures about it. He's pretty much kind of sort of blocked into his factory, I think, like into his warehouse at the moment. Can't get back to his home. So yeah, I hope everybody is nice and safe. I've had a little bit play about with the settings tonight. I'll get to why we're downstairs in a second, but I've had a bit play with the settings. Hopefully, the interaction between me and you now, the chat, I should see that the delay isn't as big now. I think it's literally about 5 or 6 seconds rather than the 30 seconds we used to get. So hopefully, we should see that a little bit faster tonight. Also, slight change of set tonight. My wife's away with work. Little one's upstairs asleep. Didn't want to be out in the garage in the studio, kind of outside, while he's asleep on his own for obvious reasons. So yeah, bit of a change for tonight. Anyway, hopefully the set's working okay. Let me know if the mic's a bit loud or any of that kind of stuff. But we'll see how it goes. So lots to chat about tonight. Obviously we've got the topic tonight, which is Warcry versus Vanguard. I'm not going to kind of sort of say like which one's better, although I'll probably give some kind of preferences, I think, as we go through. But essentially, if you're looking at skirmish fantasy games or fantasy skirmish games, these are probably the two that probably most often crop up. So we're going to give a bit of a compare and contrast, talk about the good and the bad of both, and then really kind of ask you in the chat and those watching this on the reruns as well. Drop down the comments in the chat tonight or in the comments afterwards. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think the kind of pros and cons of both are. I also want to touch on, I'm fortunate that my copy of White Dwarf arrived today. So my wife got me a subscription for Christmas, and it arrived this morning, which has got the new rules for Fire Slayers in Warcry, which we'll get to in a bit. And I also want to talk about another couple of things as well. Warhammer Underworlds Online. I've just started playing that this week. We'll probably have a little bit of chat about that. And also some board gaming stuff as well. So before we crack on and before I get started and before I dive into the chat and say hello to a few people, there's a few things I want to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up on tonight. Now, these are, let me flick across to the screen for you. Where am I? Right monitor. So this is Robot Fight Club. Now, this is a Kickstarter that is coming very soon from the folks at Needy Cat Games. Now, I've been chatting with James and Sophie, who are the creators of Needy Cat Games, about going to do some filming with them prior to the Kickstarter launching quite soon. And unfortunately, my diary's just not really syncing up with my wife being away quite a lot at the moment. I'm being home for childcare, and it's not making it possible for me to get to Nottingham as kind of early as I would have liked to have done to film with these guys. So if I don't get to make it, I want to make sure everybody gets to know about this game. So this is basically, it's a board game for those of you that are into your board games as well. They're doing a bit of kind of going around different clubs and board game cafes, doing a little bit of demoing and stuff with their prototype copies, which you can see here. I would like everybody, if you could, as a favour to me and as a favour to the Needy Cat Games folks, head over on Facebook to Robot Fight Club. Give the page a like. Let them know that you kind of saw this on the BlackJack Legacy live stream, and give them a bit of support as well. And then obviously check out the Kickstarter. I can't tell you whether the game's any good or not. I've never played it, so I'm not recommending this for the game or anything like that. But my experience of kind of filming with James and Sophie in the past and playing the games that they've created, I tend to like the games they've created, so I don't see why this one should be any different. But please do go over and offer them a little bit of support. The other person I'd like to offer a bit of support to as well is Adam Dodge. So Adam is a member in the Facebook community, in our group as well, and he is running a Kickstarter soon as well for Pagan Miniatures, and these are the Sons of Odin March of the Northmen miniatures. And they'll be coming soon. I forget the date of it is now, but if you go over and like the page again, you'll get to see it. And if I can find some pictures of the minis, that will be helpful, wouldn't it? There's some really, really nice... I don't think they've actually shared them properly yet. You can maybe see it there a little bit. They're very much kind of Northmen, kind of Viking-esque type warriors. They would work really well in Warcry as kind of untamed beasts, that kind of thing. And they would also work very well as maybe your Northern Alliance in Vanguard as well. So I thought I'd give them a bit of a shout tonight. Nice to see somebody just kind of starting out, creating their own kind of their own business, if you like. Let's see if there's any more. I'm not sure if there's any more. Not just a few different bits and pieces in there, cover pictures. So just go and show them a little bit of support as well. Nice to see. I'm kind of doing what I'm trying to do, trying to kind of make my kind of hobby a reality and that kind of stuff. And I'm well on my way with that. It's nice to kind of support somebody else trying to do the same thing as well. So, with that said, let's go back to the chat, and we'll see who we've got in. So Peter Nicholas was in nice and early. Mark Berracloth was in nice and early as well. Christopher Warden was in very early. He was in about 26 hours ago yesterday. So thank you to you three as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tony Howell's in. Says, evening, you lovely people. He might be in. He said he might be a little bit late as it's half term and his youngest is wanting extended daddy time. My boys win every time. And yes, so they should, buddy. Monley's in as well, and he's already kind of telling me what he thinks about Warcry versus Vanguard. We'll come back to those comments in a bit, buddy. Richard Smith's in, Steve Evans is in, Al Crabby's in, Timbo Clev, Paul Palms. Good evening, gentlemen. Christian Reeves, the legend that is the moderator for the chat tonight. Thank you very much, Christian, for coming in and helping out again. Robert Zunk's maybe popping in, I think. He's on his drive home with his wife. We've got Simon Morton. This is coffee and homemade shortbread. I'm on a bit of a kind of detox thing at the minute, trying to kickstart a bit more of a healthy lifestyle. And I am drinking water like it's going out of fashion. Tonight I've got my hot water with slices of lemon in it, so at least my throat will be nice and kind of dry. But it might mean I go a dash off to the toilet at any particular given time. Al Crabby's saying he's got hot chocolate and digestives as well. Oh, he's teasing now. Dice Tales is on a tea run. Mark Coxey's in. Hello, mate. Tim Kelly saying hi, folks. Bloggy's in as well, saying hoping everyone's doing good. Tiberius Wallace, nice to see you in, sir. Matt Wilkinson's in. Busey's in as well, says getting ready for the stream. Where are we? Claudio Schiffer's in as well, or Schaefer, I should say. He says, hi everyone, managed to get a live stream in, been ages, and still have to watch all the other ones at some point. He's going to enjoy this one for sure. Yes, it's all about sort of, there's no hate tonight. I will definitely tell you the kind of pros and cons, but I'm not here to kind of bash one game over the other or anything like that. Blizzards is in as well, the winner of the mug last week, mate. Let me know when your mug arrives. I did let you know it was on its way, so let me know when it arrives. VJ's he's out on his run and he's going to catch us later. Rui's in as well. Bazza's in from Underdog Painting. Hello to you, gents. Busey says it looks like you have a power cut and using candles for lighting, but it actually looks really good. I think what it is, buddy, I've got like kind of spotlights in the ceiling in the living room here, and I've got one kind of portable light that I've got over here. So if I put my hand there, you can kind of see how it blocks it off. So yeah, I think the camera's kind of adjusting to the brightness of my face, and the back end's getting a bit dark, and I'm probably casting shadows on it anyway. Where are we at? Tiberius is saying I don't play either, so I'm a bit nosy. To be honest, mate, you might be the perfect kind of person to speak to then, because like I say, if you're looking for a fantasy skirmish game, these are two that will crop up as relatively popular games, and there's a lot to like about both games. So I can kind of compare and contrast, tell you the differences, tell you the similarities as well, and kind of leave it up to you a little bit as well. Who else have we got? Paul McElroy's in. Hello, Paul. Zingbo's in as well, saying he's even from Edinburgh and he's assembling Warcry terrain. Well, I hope you've watched my video, buddy. Peter Nicholas is hoping everyone's okay after the weather. Glenn Seymour's in. Nice to see you, Glenn, mate. Timbo says they're doing a Robo Fight Club early access type thing at my old club in London. Yeah, they're doing a bit of a kind of tour around, sort of getting the game in front of people. It's a really good way to do it, to be fair. And I wish more companies did it, kind of doing a bit of a tour of the board gaming cafes and gaming clubs, and just getting the game in front of people and letting people actually try it before the Kickstarter. I think they're doing a really good job of that. Tom Tom the... Oh, let's just jump there. Tom the Bomb's in as well. Nice to see you, Tom the Bomb. He said he's back. Missed you all last week. Kieran Burns in as well. Mark Coxey says, how's the tattoo healing up? I forgot the itch is worse than the needle. I tell you what, it is healing up. So, where am I? Which arm? There. It is starting... You can see my elbow's a bit red, but I think that's just where I've been resting on the table here. But yeah, it's kind of... The scabbing's pretty much gone now. But yes, tattoos on your elbows.
I'm not sure I understand.
We'll get rid of that. Tattoos on your elbows and tattoos on the inside of your elbows. Who knew they would hurt? Who knew they would scab up quite a bit and keep cracking as you're bending your arm and things like that? Yeah, I'm kind of getting to a point where I can rest on it again now that all the swelling's gone down and all that stuff. So I can start painting again. But yeah, it was like a 5-hour tattoo session, which was kind of painful in itself. But then the next few days, that just the aching and the kind of the soreness and the bruising, yeah, it was quite a pain. Where are we at? Adam Edgar's in. Nice to see you, future boy. You'll already know the answer because you're ahead of time. Where we at? Let's go down the chat a bit. Faberbuck's in as well, saying hate all painting ogres in parallel, so won't follow the chat too closely. Don't troll too hard. I got minis to paint. I'll try not to, mate. We got Skullmunching as well. Good evening, Sean. How are you, mate? We've got Throat Saw in. Hello, fella. Not seen you in a little while. I hope you're okay too. Mark Coley says, hope you're well. Painting his first dragon for the slow grow. You'll smash it, mate. Don't worry about that. Kevin Oz in. Says, good content, buddy. Checking in from Maryland, US. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate the kind words. Where else are we? We got loads of new names in tonight, so hope it seems to be a bit of a lively topic already. Then, so we've got where are we at? We got Beavis Beedman's in as well. Nice to see you, sir. We've got is it Sanatos Taggart or Shantos Taggart? Apologies if I've butchered your name there, buddy. Anyone know of a simplified skirmish sci-fi game similar to Warcry? I love Warcry and the lack of the dice rolls for wounds, etc. The one that everybody keeps recommending to me that I've not played yet is it Star Breach? Somebody will correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. I've been looking it up. It's got a bit of a bolt action dice mechanic. It might be worth checking that out because everybody keeps telling me about that one. Star Breach, that's what he's saying. Dead Zone, excellent. I would agree, Dead Zone is a good game. Zone Raiders, I've not played. Star Breach, I've been doing a bit of reading on, mate. So I would say between those two, because I've not anything to do with the third. Where else we at? Christopher says, better man than me. I don't have any ink. I didn't get any tattoos until I think I was about 40. About 40-year-old, I think I was. And since then, I've had quite a bit. So I've got like tattoos on here. I've got some up here. This one goes all the way up and stuff like that. So now I settled on what I wanted. I spent a long time deciding what I wanted. And then once I did, then I felt quite free getting it done. So yeah, but the same person has done all my tattoos and they've kind of designed it and we've chatted about it and stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of comfortable with that. Where are we at? Kirill saying he's finally free from work. Nice to see you in, mate. Tony Booth Leiden's in saying good evening. Matt Mountain's in as well, saying hashtag Monday for Vanguard for the win. Everybody likes both games for different reasons. I'm going to skip down and try and do a few names because I feel like this is going to take me all legs. We've got loads of names in tonight. We've got Derek Hodge. Hello again, Derek Hodge. We've got, let's have a look. G Daddy Gamers in. Says never get a tattoo with somebody's name. Unless it's your own, of course. You're not going to change your own name, I wouldn't imagine. Where else are we? I think Joss Vermillion's in as well. It says just tuned in. Did I miss anything? I'm just saying hello, buddy. You've come in at the right time. And Will Caldwell saying, does Vanguard have a campaign system and how does it compare to the Warcry campaign? What a perfect time to dive in and start talking about the two games. So, tonight, Warcry on the screen and Vanguard on the screen. Both are fantasy games. Both are skirmish games. There are some similarities between the two and there are some pretty significant differences between the two as well. I think what I'll probably do, I'll probably try and I'll probably try and sort of take it into sections, maybe talk about price, talk about models, talk about rules, talk about campaigns, talk about overall kind of quality and stuff like that. So if anybody has any specific kind of comments for me as I'm going, please do at BlackJack Legacy, and I'll try and catch up with them later on. It seems a relatively lively chat tonight. So yeah, just give me a shout and I'll try and get back to you. So of the two games, Vanguard is by Mantic. It is part of the Kings of War universe, and it was released probably about, I think I'm right in saying probably about 14-15 months ago now. About September, October time, 2018, I think it was. And it is essentially a fantasy skirmish game. You have probably around kind of 10 to 15 models in a warband normally. There is an element of list building. There's no kind of pre-generated lists or anything like that. Each model has points cost. They all have individual stats. They all have different sort of weapons and things. Can you upgrade the weapons? You can choose some weapons from kind of optional lists, but they tend to come with their own weapons, a little bit like the Warcry ones do. The models themselves. Let's flick some of the models up because I want to try and I want to kind of show you some of the stuff. So this is just on the Mantic website. This is just some Vanguard products. As you can see here, these are just some of the dwarves, for example. That's just as I'm scrolling through. Let's pick up this dwarf support pack. So this guy is an Iron Watch, and you can see obviously. There's the model, very nice sculpt, but you can see the cards in the background as well. I think if I go back and show you this guy, I think this one has got a better, picture of the card. So here you can see the kind of cards that you get in Vanguard. So it tells you basically the name of the model, it tells you the faction that they're from, which is behind my head there. It tells you the size of the base, how many points they are, tells you kind of a bit of I'll come on to kind of large and support at some point. You've got your stat line with speed, melee, ranged, armor, nerve, wounds, and height. I should say as well that Vanguard is a D8 game, not D6. So when something is a 4+, it's kind of average, really. So don't think everything's kind of really poor at 4+, if you like. It's got some special rules here, so things like crushing strength. I think basically it does 3 more damage on a melee hit off the top of my head, I think. Things like smash and steady. It's got how many dice you roll for ranged attacks, how many dice you roll for melee attacks, what the alignment is as you have good, neutral, and evil, and what equipment it's carrying, and then any specific kind of special rules that particular model has. Now here what you'll see is this 1 red dice, and this is something that is quite, or was certainly quite unique to Vanguard when it first came out, and this was the addition of power dice. Now I think you get off the top of my head, I think you get 3 power dice per turn to start with, and each of these certain models will bring additional power dice to the pool. And what power dice allow you to do is you roll them all at the start of your turn, you add up sort of the sum of the totals, and that's how much power you have to use at that particular turn. Let me just go back to the main one. That's how much sort of power you have to use. And you can use those power dice at any point during your turn to do special abilities. Now you might just use them to add a dice to an attack roll. You might use them to activate a special kind of power or something. Let me just give you some examples here, rather than just rambling. So we've got things like fatigue. I'll come on to because that's quite important as well. You can make a group shoot, so rather than just shooting one model, you can shoot a group of 3 together. You can do a group assault, so rather than just charging with one model, you can kind of assault with 3 of them. And then there's some warband specific special rules as well. So a little bit like Warcry, where you have those universal abilities and they rely upon the dice that you roll at the start of your turn. Instead of having counting up the amount of power you've got in Warcry, you've got doubles or triples or quads. So there's a bit of a similarity in there. And to be fair to Mantic, their game came out first. So it would be easy to kind of throw a little bit in Mantic and say, well, you're just copying what Warcry did. Vanguard was first. So I think that's kind of really important just to clarify that. So what you can also do is you get 2 actions, and you can use things to move. You can shoot. You can attack. You can charge. You can I think you can go on like like a defensive stance. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But one thing you can do is you can then fatigue your model. So what you can do is, if your model is, you can do your 2 actions. You can choose to do a 3rd action and fatigue your model. Now, if your model is fatigued at the end of the turn, the following turn, they will only get 1 action and you can't fatigue them again. Or you can save one of your power dice and you can remove that fatigue from the model. So you can use your power dice to basically push them that bit harder, save the power dice back, knowing that you can then remove that fatigue token if you like. And that's a really interesting mechanic that Vanguard does. Another thing that Vanguard does as well is it's on square bases. If you didn't notice from the, let me just go back. So as you can see for the model, it's on square bases, something that still kind of feels weird to me in a skirmish game, having square bases, but they're there for a reason. They do have a front facing, so that across the front arc of the model is where they can see. So if you get charged from the rear, it has a devastating effect. Somebody's came up behind you, they're going to kind of hit you very hard. So that's an important thing to talk about. When it comes to Warcry, very similar kind of thing. Models, let's quickly flick across. I'm sure you've all seen Warcry models before, but in the interest of fairness, let's have a look at the Spire Tyrants here. Basically, the difference being with Warcry is there's quite a lot of stuff. Because we've got a mixture of stuff with Warcry. There's some things that come as like a core box for £30 here, for example, and it comes with all of the cards. From the Mantic point of view, let's just quickly flick back across. They do some starter boxes as well. So if I flick back just to compare them, you can get like a Dwarf Warband set. So here there is 10 miniatures in it. Let's just quickly flick that open. There's 10 miniatures in this one. It comes with the cards you need as well. So they're quite similar. In the same way that with Warcry, there are some factions that don't have starter boxes yet. With Vanguard, there are some factions that don't have starter boxes yet as well. Obviously, I'm sure most people will know about Warcry's the dice at the start kind of thing, where you roll your dice, you get your doubles and all that kind of stuff as well. So very similar. So both games use similar amount of models. Both games use a dice mechanic at the start of each turn. Both games use cards as well, which I find very, very helpful. Model quality is a bit of a mixed bag, I would say. From a GW side of things, we all know what GW miniatures are like. They are very, very good. I mean, it's if we go to these Spire Tyrants here, and let's just have a quick look at some particular ones. Here we are. You can see here, they make very good miniatures. I'm never going to knock Games Workshop for the miniatures they make. From a Mantic point of view, let's go back. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Some of these have older models in. So if we look at Forces of Nature as an example, some of these are actually very, very nice. These ones here are not my particular taste, but are they bad models? I wouldn't necessarily say so. Let's go back. I think so. There are some much older models. Let's have a look at this one, for example. I have this model. It's not one of my favorites. I actually didn't put these kind of moose ear things on it myself. But it's not a bad model. There's a mixture of metal models, resin models, and plastics in the Vanguard range. Within Warcry, it's going to be sort of all plastics. Price-wise, they're kind of similar, if I'm honest. They both come with kind of starter warbands for about £30, and that's enough to kind of get you in and get you playing. They both have a rule book, which I think, let me just check the price of the Vanguard rule book. I think it's £20. Oh, sorry, £20 for the digital one, £25 for the hardback. It is really nice, and it is all full colour. The book is absolutely beautiful. Really, really nicely done. The Warcry rulebook, I think, is also £25. If we can just, like I say, let me just double check that one just to make sure. Yeah, £25 as well. So from a UK perspective, the price of the books are the same. Warcry Vanguard doesn't come with a starter set. There has never been a starter set, which can be a little bit confusing for new players wanting to kind of dip their toe in, not really sure what they need to do. But from a Warcry perspective, they had a really, really good starter set, which you can't really buy anymore now. So I guess from that point of view, they're both probably on similar levels. If I move on to the rules themselves, I've kind of touched quite heavily on the rules for Vanguard. From a Warcry perspective, I think I've spoken about it quite a lot on live streams, but for those that don't know, the rules for Warcry are very, very simple. They're very straightforward. The game itself is basically you can either move, you can attack, you can retreat, or you can hold. Like a wait action, basically, which allows you to wait and do your second action later in the turn and activate a second turn. They have the abilities as well, so they have some universal abilities. They have abilities that are specific to certain models. So actually, the games on the face of it are actually relatively similar. I would say the Warcry rules are probably a lot more simple to get your head around, but I would say that the Vanguard rules are probably much more tactfully deep. I think there's a lot more you can do, and that really does come out in the game. Now, I think because the rules are relatively simple for Warcry, it almost promotes you because it becomes really simple to, I'll just climb up there and I'll jump over here and I'll run across here. It almost wants you to start doing that quite quickly because the rules are simple. Now, the thing I don't think I really realized back when I first started playing Vanguard was the rules in Vanguard allow you to do that too. They're just a little bit more sort of deep. So things about climbing buildings, dropping down from buildings, taking damage if you fall, or versus climbing down. You can make jumps as long as you've got the distance to do so. So the rules are kind of in there as well, both ways. What else did I want to say about it? Campaign-wise, both systems have a campaign system. Vanguard's campaign system is in this original core book and is a very sort of quite a deep campaign system. There's a lot of stuff in here about casualty tables. So as you can see, campaigns. You can see my little coloured markers from when I'm using the book, picking things out and stuff. So there's a lot of things there about like a supply caravan that basically carries your weapons between battles. There is roster sheets. There's basically how to choose your leader, preparing your equipment. You can buy sort of spells or common or rare equipment to come with them. You get experience and you rank up as you play the game. There's things about a balance of war as well. So basically, if one kind of warband is getting a little bit away in a campaign, there's a way to balance those things out. You can take mercenaries as well. There's a let me just flick to that page. So here you can see. Let's go back there. There is actually mercenaries available in the original book. There is the casualty table here as well. So if you're taking, I know you can't read this, but I'm just showing you it's there. If you have any kind of damage, any wounded people after the battle, there's ways to roll for damage, roll for casualties. There's special rules and things that you can do as your models advance as well. So there's quite a deep campaign system in Kings of War Vanguard. The campaign system in the original Warcry book wasn't great, really. It was a light touch, I would say. It is very well laid out. It is, if we go back to things like, so there's you go through your campaigns in Warcry. It's actually pretty good, but it is very simple. There's not a lot of advancement. There's no kind of extra stuff like your models don't really get any better as they go, kind of thing. That has been addressed slightly both in the Monsters and Mercenaries book, and it's also been addressed slightly in the Tome of Champions as well. So there has been some more work done to that, but there's been 2 more books have come out. For Vanguard, there's been 1 more book come out, which is Ice and Iron, and in the Ice and Iron book, if I can remember what it says about it, there is essentially... Have I skipped over that bit I was reading before? There is... I think there's things like there's weather tables and stuff that come into it. There's another kind of campaign storyline that comes in with it, and there's also some adjustments to some of the points levels and things as well. So things have been updated in that. So both systems are relatively similar when it comes to that. So there's no other wonder, like kind of that's why I'm comparing the two of them really. Now, before I go any further, obviously I'm missing a load of chat here, so I'll dive in and just kind of see if anything's been flagged up. That Will was asking about the campaign system. He said, how does it compare to Warcry campaign? I would say that actually the campaign system from Vanguard is probably, if you're used to playing things like Frostgrave, if you're used to playing things like Mordheim, I think the campaign system from Vanguard is probably better, if I'm honest. I would also say that in the Vanguard book, you also have, I think there's 12 scenarios as well, which show you kind of deployment, a nice little story, what the win conditions, all that kind of stuff. Similar to kind of the cards that you would pull out from the Warcry type stuff. What else would I say about it in comparison to that way? I think that a lot of people will be swayed by the fact that it's Games Workshop and the idea of kind of getting regular games in, because there's a lot of GWs dotted about, and GW games do very well, and potentially the fact that you might already have some of those miniatures from AOS. From the other side of things, with Vanguard, it's a growing community. The Kings of War community is growing all the time. If you have Kings of War models, that's basically, you can use those in Vanguard, and if you have Vanguard models, you can always scale up to Kings of War as well. Playing time wise, I would say that in general, Warcry plays a little bit faster, because sometimes you're only playing 2 or 3 turns and win conditions can come quite quickly. That's more to do with the fact that sometimes they're a little bit unbalanced. Vanguard, the games I've played, 45 minutes, an hour max. It's still a short game, really, in the grand scheme of things. If you've seen any of the battle reports that I've done online for Vanguard, you'll see they're kind of 45-minute videos, and that's with a little bit of chat beforehand and afterwards as well. So they're not that dissimilar on the face of it. I would probably say if you're looking for a game that you drop in and out of kind of frequently, so you might play something play a couple of games and then maybe not come back to it for quite some time, Warcry is probably the easier one to drop in and out of. But if you're looking for a fantasy game that is very deep, has a lot of progression, has a lot of story elements, but plays just as well as one-off games as well, it's definitely worth giving Vanguard a check. And as I mentioned before, I think it's definitely worth saying Vanguard was the first one out. There's a lot of similarities between these two from the kind of on the face of it, and it would be very easy to kind of point the finger at Mantic and think that it's just another example of them basically kind of copying some of the stuff that Warcry does. But the fact is, it was the other way around. Let's have a look what we got here. Andrew Fairbanks is in as well. He says nothing against Kings of War Vanguard, but nobody at the Warhammer store wants to play it. Not surprised, buddy. Redwell says good day. Is that Knave 7? Just started playing Warcry, or N4? Yeah, I think we'll go with Knave 7. Just started playing Warcry. I'm building the Unmade right now. Where we are. Christian is saying, want to help Andy achieve his dreams? Support him on Patreon from as little as $2 a month. Gets you access to private Discord. At higher levels, you get a free mug and t-shirt every 6 months. We'll chat about Patreon a bit later on as well, because I want to talk to you about how on earth do I get my message out there without sounding like a really bad salesman. Timbo saying, is Kings of War square round bases? Square bases, as I mentioned, mate. We've got Paolo in as well. Tony says, from a minis perspective, GW have the edge on quality. In terms of interest in minis, I'd say that Warcry and Vanguard both have minis of equal engaging and inspiring range. Vanguard are way more robust. Let's just very quickly go. I'll go back, because let me use these as an example. So these were new models when Vanguard first came out, and these are for the Abyssals, or Forces of Abyss. And actually, I have these models, so I can kind of talk about them. These 3 are all resin models, and the detail on them is actually fantastic. No disrespect to Mantic, but I don't think that this paint job necessarily does the best justice to this particular model. It's a much nicer when you see it in the flesh. This one here is a really good model. Lots of detail, like this stuff down the back that you can't really see here, but these chains are really kind of sort of well sculpted in resin. This is quite. I'll have to dig out my pictures as well, but I think when you compare them to Games Workshop stuff, sometimes we fall in love with the Games Workshop paint jobs. Now, when you see, let me see if I can find the. Let me see if I can find the giant, because I'm assuming the giant on the page will have the Angel Heraldez paint jobs. So here's a frost giant, and I think this is the one that Angel Heraldez painted. And this starts to kind of show you some of the quality that Mantic are capable of, and it really gets shown off to its best. This would stand up on a Games Workshop kind of page, and everybody would be raving about it. It's a fantastic sculpt, it's a fantastic model, and it's done justice with a fantastic paint job as well. So, as you can kind of see here, let me skip over a couple of these. It really is kind of like showing it off to its best ability. So sometimes it's hard to say it, but sometimes the paint jobs don't always show off just how good the quality of the Mantic stuff is. There are some older stuff that, frankly, is a bit poor. It's been around for 10 years, and it could do with being updated maybe. But if you're buying into things like maybe Night Stalkers, which are an all-new Mantic army, if you're buying into things like Northern Alliance, which are predominantly, I think, pretty much all a brand new Mantic army, the quality is getting there. It's not night and day like it maybe used to be many years ago. Let's go back and have a look in the chat again. Faberbuck says Kings of War's unit trays. People use AOS minis on rectangular trays for Kings of War. Yeah, some do, to be fair. Some do. Andrew Fairbanks says, for your information, on a D8, 5+ is 50-50, 4+ is above average. Sorry, mate, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I was trying to suggest that 4+ wasn't kind of at the poor end of things. Glenn said he can't really say much about Vanguard. Only ever had one game with Mark from Dice Tales. Did enjoy the game, though. Timbo says he wants to make a Middle-earth strategy battle game warband eventually. Yeah, you know, Middle-earth's not my bag. Faberbuck said, big difference. Most power use is with generic actions, booster roll, group actions, mess up with order of activations, or unfatigue. Yes. Although you could say that. So yeah, it's more like, what's good is the power dice in Vanguard are much more flexible, and you can choose when to use them. You can use them up quite quickly. You do lose them at the end of a turn, so they're there to be used. They vary in between rounds because you roll them and see how much you get. But they're more forgiving in the fact that you can choose to use them. Excuse me, when you're in a bit of a sticky situation. Where in Warcry, you can have examples where you can go the entire round and not use any of your abilities because it just doesn't seem to be a good kind of use for them at a particular time, if you like. Paolo embraces the defensive stance in Vanguard. Thank you, Paolo. Where we at? Robert saying, I have heard some people don't like Warcry because it's too simple, and to be fair, I haven't played it yet, but simple can sometimes be funner. Yeah, I think for people that find Warcry too simple, Vanguard is a really, really, really good option. For people that find most war games a little bit of a headache and they just want something very straightforward, I think Warcry is a fantastic option. And yeah, I think if you're just looking for a bit of kind of very quick, simple one-off game fun, Warcry is not a bad shout. Kings of War Vanguard plays really well for single games, but there's definitely a real benefit to playing a campaign or playing a kind of like a progression with your war bands. Timbo is saying older GW sculpts are similarly atrocious. Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, GW have been around for quite some time. If you go back and look at some of their older stuff, they wouldn't stand up today. And the same can be said of Mantic. The only difference is, I think, is that GW, because of the size of them now, phase those things out probably more quickly. That's all. Blizzard's is saying, great thing about Vanguard is you can download the cards free online, so you can use your own minis if you want. I forgot to mention that, mate. So at the moment, here's a couple of things actually. At the moment, the Vanguard rules are free. If you go to the Mantic website, let me find them and I can show you where they are. So if you go to free rules, Mantic free rules, you can download the Kings of War Vanguard rules for free digitally. You can get the Vanguard free warbands digitally, which will give you all of the stats for the different warbands, the ones that are in the book, I believe. And there's also a roster sheet that you can download as well. You can also use Easy Army as well, which has all of the stats in there. So actually, if you're looking to just give the game a try, and maybe even use with models you've already got, you can do that for free with Vanguard, because the rules are available for you to kind of to dive into. From a Warcry perspective, you can, of course, kind of copy stats offline. There's a lot of YouTube videos have gone through and showed you all of the different stats where you could screenshot them and print them off, I suppose. And that's a possibility if you want to try it for free. The rules are not available for free online, so either you need to know somebody that has the rules, or you need to kind of to pick a rule book up. So from that point of view, Vanguard probably has a slight edge of inviting you just to give the game a go, if you like. And I should also mention as well, that was one thing I wanted to mention before, that, if I can just find them. So, Vanguard actually has some kind of, it has some stats for the models in the book. So if you're used to playing things like Kill Team, where the stats for the models are in the book, Vanguard is the same. However, it doesn't have all of the models in the book. Enough in there that will, if you pick up the starter boxes, they come with all the stat cards. So if you want the cards, you'll need to pick up the models. If you just want the stats, you can look in Easy Army, or there's quite a lot of it in the book as well. Certainly enough for you to get playing. Where we at? Faberbox here saying free rules for Vanguard available as PDF. Kirill saying, I didn't play a Warcry and now I will listen with interest about the game mechanic. Throatsaw, of course, Mantic don't mind you using models from other companies for Kings of War Universe, GW. To be fair, GW don't mind you using other people's models. You just can't use them in a GW store, and you can't use them in a GW tournament. And you tend to find the community is a bit... are they a bit... I think as long as it's obvious what something is, maybe they're not too bad. I don't know, but yeah, the difference is Mantic would quite happily welcome you to Mantic to a tournament in their offices, and you can play whatever models you want. GW wouldn't do that, but if you're just playing with your buddies locally, it doesn't really matter what models you use for any game, does it really? Robert Marshall's in as well, saying finally made it, folks. Decided to ring. Good evening and all. Hope I haven't missed much. No, not too much, mate. Just most of what I've been talking about. But I guess you'll have caught most of that. King John's in, says, hey guys and Andy, go Kings of War Vanguard. Dicedale says, didn't Vanguard get a campaign update in the last book? It did, mate. It added some more stuff to the campaigns in the Ice and Iron book. Tiberius says, it does seem Vanguard is a proper game and Warcry is a lot less considered, if you follow what I'm thinking. I do know what you mean, mate. That Vanguard is a proper game, if you like. It's almost if you're a gamer who likes to play miniature games, if you're into the kind of campaign progression and kind of leveling up your models and that kind of stuff, building a story, Vanguard potentially is the better option. If you're somebody that's maybe never played a miniatures game before, or you're looking to play something maybe with kind of younger players, something a bit more straightforward, you're not looking for anything too deep, probably just a bit more relaxed fun, kind of beer and pretzel type stuff, Warcry potentially could be the shout. But yeah, if you're a proper miniature gamer, I think Vanguard's got the edge over that stuff. Where are we at now? that very quickly. Just shot off the top of my screen there. Let's have a look and see if I can find out where we were. Oh yeah, we're back here now. Timbo saying the original Warcry campaign is very lacking, but the Tome of Champions makes it much better. Yes, I would agree, mate. But then I guess at that point you're buying two books to the one for Vanguard as well. So if cost is important, potentially that could be a balancing thing for you as well. Paulo says the campaign system in Vanguard reminds me of the depth we had in Necromunda and Blood Bowl in the 90s. Yes, I can imagine that's exactly how it is. It's definitely a much it's been written by people who definitely love that sort of older style of campaign progression, if you like, rather than the much more streamlined and simplified rules of kind of the modern day, if you like. Or streamlined campaign, I should say. Streamlined rules. Yeah. The rules are not difficult. But the Warcry kind of campaign is very much streamlined. A little bit like how kind of Kill Team campaign was streamlined. Stormont Gamers in. Hello, buddy. How are you doing? This is for our community. The original Warcry campaign was great for casual play. Tome of Champions adds a bit more grit, but looking forward to some more as well. They're definitely layering it up over time. They're using it as an opportunity to kind of get you in on the ground floor and then layer up the difficulty as they go. It's just that it's coming in chunks over time, where I think Vanguard gives you the opportunity to play like kind of very straightforward one-off games, string them together as a bit of a campaign if you wanted to, or go much deeper into the campaign system. Glenn saying Warcry, Bugbear, Fire Slayers in White Dwarf. Yes, mate. We'll get to that. Where are we? Malkavian saying evening all, running a bit late, but he's here now. Hello, mate. Stonemonk saying the Warcry system is amazing for players who can't make it every week and give permission to dip in and out with life. Yes, I would not disagree with that at all. It's kind of like, for me, I'm not really a campaign player. I never really played much of the campaign in Vanguard. I have played it and I'm aware of it. Like, I know enough to talk about it, but I'm not a deep campaign player. And I think that was one of the things that I really did love about Warcry when it first came out. It kind of fitted with just my kind of casualness of player and liking to play lots of different kind of games and stuff. Saying, but getting that crunch is cool in Tome of Champions and will be cool to see more from the Vanguard book. I think somewhere there's a real good... There's almost the perfect mix. If you could take elements of both and write a rule set, the simplicity maybe of some of the Warcry rules with the crunch of the Vanguard kind of campaign, and the accessibility of having free rules, and all those kind of things. If you could pull all those kind of things together, a bit like, for example, the fact that you've got facings in Vanguard, the fact that you have the power dice, rather than having doubles and triples and quads, that sometimes you never ever get to use them. In Vanguard, there's always something you can do with them, because if you fatigue your model to do an extra action, you can use that power dice to take that fatigue off them later on. So I find the economy of using your power dice, it's more of a hand management, I think, in Vanguard, using your power dice, where in Warcry it's almost a I hope I get the chance to use them a little bit, if you know what I mean. Paulo saying Vanguard has its hooks, so a game can have an effect on a game of Kings of War if you wish. Yes, so the winner of Vanguard gets a giant in the next game of Kings of War. It certainly does. I'd like to see that in AOS, actually. I'd like to see almost something coming from a Warcry battle that would affect an AOS game. I guess you could house rule it, but Mantic have actually gone to the trouble of building that into the Vanguard system. Carrie is saying there, does Vanguard come as a starter or is it just a rule book? It doesn't come as a starter, buddy. There is a rule book, although the rule book is free online. There are starter warbands for each of the different factions that they've done so far. I should just probably go back and just mention the warbands that actually that there are in Vanguard, because let's have a look. If I go to shop, go to Vanguard, so you'll see here. We've got, if I do that you won't see it, we've got the Basileans here, we've got the Basileans, the Dwarves, the Forces of Abyss, Forces of Nature, Goblins, there's Mercenaries as well, there's Night Stalkers, Northern Alliance, Trident Realms, and the Undead. So those are the factions that you can choose to play in Vanguard at the moment. And Abyssal Dwarfs, I think, have just arrived or are just about to arrive as well. Where we Dice Tales is saying he's played his first Frostgrave Ghost Arpeggio this week. Also a very Warcry simple game, very few rules, just a few more mods for damage and cover. Where we at? Robert saying rule book and warbands, no starter. Yeah, talking about starting boxes. Dice Tales says Vanguard, you do kind of want their custom dice. There is some custom dice, to be fair, which are the power dice. You can use the numbers on the sides, if you like, are exactly the same as the Walking Dead dice as well. So a white, a red, and a blue does exactly the same in the Walking Dead, like the kind of the numbering on the sides. So if you have those dice, you can use them in Vanguard. But they are available to buy as well. Faberbook says also balanced. Vanguard is pretty well balanced. Most games end up being on the edge to the last term. That's certainly my experience from when I was playing kind of more regularly. It never really felt too one-sided. Now, I'm sure now as people have kind of got to grips with the game, if somebody is very good at it, they will they'll show you a hard time if they've got a good list. But that's more to do with kind of list building and knowledge of the game as opposed to imbalance in the game. There are some quite unbalanced bits to Warcry, and some of those scenarios can certainly exasperate that as well. But it doesn't make it unfun. Those games are just over with very quickly, and then you start again, have another game, don't you? Carrie saying, thanks. Thinking of getting into it. It seems inexpensive. It's probably not that different to Warcry, if I'm honest. The starter warbands are similarly priced. If you're starting to buy individual models to kind of build out your warband, you're still looking at maybe like £10 a model-ish, if you like. Certain warbands are probably more expensive than others in the same way that you get that on Vanguard, you get that on Warcry as well, because they're lower points cost, if you like. So I would say it's maybe a cheaper start because the rules are free. And I also didn't mention as well, it's played on a 3x3 mat. So it's slightly bigger than Warcry, but similarly kind of small sized as well. Joss has just finished his Iron Golems and he started today with Primer on the Untamed Beasts. Dominic's in as well. Hello, mate. Lee Russell saying, even all he's been watching the Panorama special about Amazon. I'll need to catch up on that one, mate, but he's paying some 40k while he listens. Paulo saying, Angel is a superstar. He definitely is. Father Knows Best says, definitely prefer the GW models over Mantic. In this day and age, Mantic doesn't cut it for me. I think it's a personal taste thing, mate. There's quite a few GW models that I think are very well sculpted, but I'm not a big fan of them. They're not my particular taste. In the same way, there's a lot of Mantic models that are just not my taste, and I wouldn't buy them. But there's nothing stopping you using one model in another game or whatever. I'm kind of... What I would say is, Mantic are 10 years old. They're quite some way behind Games Workshop in a kind of in a overall business size of things and their abilities and sort of production facilities and that kind of stuff. And I would suggest that if you take Games Workshop out of it, Mantic produce some very, very good quality miniatures in line probably with the rest of the market and potentially better than a lot of others of similar sized businesses. Once you get up to the kind of GW levels, they're kind of their investment and their ability to make stuff themselves far outstrips them from everybody else. Where are we at? Tony saying, if I was good enough, fast enough and mobile, I'd be over the moon to pay for Mantic. Lee says, Mantic qualities come on leaps and bounds. New Basilean sculpts are wonderful compared to some of their older stuff. And the early Dreadball stuff were a bit ropey. Yeah, I think they've, like as I just said, they've been through lots of different kind of processes and stuff. Some of their new kind of resin stuff now is fantastic, if I'm honest. There's some really, really good resin stuff. Some of their older plastics were a bit soft looking, but then if you look at some of the stuff they're doing for things like the Hellboy board game, the plastics that they're getting made for that, the sculpts are really, really good. They've obviously gone to a lot of 3D modeling for some of their stuff now, which is getting them some really sharp models. I would agree, mate. Some poor stuff years ago, but every new release now seems to kind of kick it on a notch. Following us by says, smaller companies like Zenit Miniatures make better sculpts, so it isn't about resources. I think Mantic are stuck in an aesthetic that's just lacking. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, mate. I mean, I'm not familiar with Zenit Miniatures, and I'm sure they might well do, but how many games have they released? What kind of how many models do they release on an annual basis? How many do they do? One sculpt every 3 months or something like that? I can't compare them because I don't know enough about them, Zenit, to be fair. Tiberius says, Andy, you're usually chugging a pint of vodka. What's happening? I mentioned before, mate. I'm just on hot water and lemon, mate. It's part of my detox, my cleanse, mate. I'm trying to get healthy again. Tiberius says that's why I've gone Mantic Undead, because they look so old-fashioned looking, old hammer if you like, but modern quality. Yeah, the undead stuff's actually pretty nice, to be fair, and it's that one has stood a little bit more of a test of time. Their skeletons and their zombies were pretty much the kind of the go-to models for quite a long time. Where are we at now? I think everything just jumped over the top of my screen a little bit there while I looked away. I'm just going to dive in where I can. Vaughanwood's in. Good evening, Vaughanwood. We've got Kelly Cordlin as well saying, with contrast, you can knock out paint and Warcry bands in a hurry. Small bands mean I can try different war bands easily. Different Gear TV, Busey there saying, what about terrain for both Warcry and Vanguard? So, Vanguard and Warcry both benefit from quite a bit of terrain on the board. It allows you to have a much more kind of thematic and cinematic game. You don't really want big open areas, if you like. A bit of height in the game really helps as well. Mantic don't make any... Mantic don't make any kind of buildings and stuff from a terrain perspective, so you are pretty much welcome to go out and buy whatever you like. I was actually thinking today, I've never played Vanguard on Warcry terrain, on the GW terrain, with a bit more height and stuff, and I'd like to see how that plays, because in the past, buildings have been kind of blocking terrain, if you like. You never really thought about climbing up the buildings and standing on a roof or something. It's always been kind of out in those kind of open battlefields or out in old farmland or something like that. And I think Vanguard would really benefit from being played on a board with a little bit of height and a bit of terrain and stuff like that. So I'd quite like to do that actually and see how it is. But yeah, Mantic don't produce the terrain, whereas Games Workshop does. Dice Tales is saying he's used Warcry terrain for Vanguard. Same scale size, fits the world. That has that prior to that homemade terrain. And he's saying that actually Mantic has some nice terrain packs. They do have some nice terrain packs, but they tend to be just kind of like aesthetic scatter. They block in terrain basically, and there's no height to kind of climb over and stuff like that, I feel like, apart from maybe fences and stuff. Gillian80 says, I would love to play anything Mantic, but there's no scene at all within 200 kilometers. That tends to be one of the things that kind of puts us off. But to be fair, you could say that for any game really outside of Games Workshop. You could say, I want to play a Wild West Exodus. There's not much of a scene. I want to play a Frostgrave. There's not much of a scene. So it's not a Mantic problem, if you like. It's just a problem outside of GW. All these companies can do is produce nice miniatures, produce good rule sets, and hopefully that's enough to kind of to hook people with them. Outside of that, the other companies are relying on big licenses, things like Marvel, Crisis Protocol, or Star Wars, to try and drag people away from GW. Dice Tale says, seeing the Mantic people all gather at tournaments rather than local play. I'm lucky to have a few Mantic fanatics locally. Yeah, I think certainly within the UK perspective, there tends to be that kind of tournament circuit that people are willing to travel to, don't they? Timbo saying Roman monster rules and the new Wrath of the Everchosen could do that. I'm not sure if there's kind of monster rules. There's the big giant in Vanguard, which is part of one of the scenarios, but I'm not sure if there's anything kind of more in that. Robert says, as a casual gamer, I love the idea of Warcry and Vanguard. It's not a lot of time and money to invest to get a warband together. That's exactly what I would say, actually, is that both of these games, let's not knock either of them, basically. Let's praise them both, because what they both do is they take a fantasy kind of theme and they put a really good rule set together, and they're not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. They're not that expensive to get into. If you and a friend want to dive into these, basically £30 each for a warband each for either game gets you started. And if you want to buy a rulebook for Warcry, it's £25. If you want to get the free one from Mantic, you can do, or you can buy their rulebook, which is definitely worth all the £25 as well. You could buy that as well and get all the campaign stuff as well in the scenarios. So actually for, what's that, £85 between the two of you, you're up and running. I don't think that's too bad compared to a lot of games these days. Blizzard is saying there's another 14 warbands in Ice and Iron. I didn't realise that, buddy. I'm just looking down the website, to be fair, to see what there is. Are there variations on these ones, or are they more like what they called the Uncharted Empire stuff, I assume, is it? Oh yeah, I'm just seeing there underneath there, including Herd, Beastmen and Ratkin Skaven. Yeah, so it's the stuff they don't necessarily make models for at the moment. Mark Corley says, no orcs, sack that. I think there is an orc. I'm pretty sure there is orcs, to be fair, mate. I don't know why it's not on the website there. I thought there was orcs in here. I could be completely wrong, and I'm flicking furiously through here while I'm looking. So there is, to be fair, mate, I don't know why there is some warbands missing then from that list, because I've just seen. So let me tell you what's in the book anyway. I'll tell you the warbands that's in the book if I can find the index. So there's Basileans, Dwarves, Elves, Northern Alliance, Forces of Nature, Ogres, Trident Realm, Abyssal Dwarves, Forces of the Abyss, Empire of Dust, Goblins, Night Stalkers, Orcs, and Undead. So I don't know why they're not all on the website there. Maybe it's because they haven't released them for Vanguard specifically yet. But there is rules for all of those different factions. I apologise if I confused anybody there. Where was that one? Just gone off the top of my screen again. Excuse me. Where are we at? Rerolling ones. Jack says, do you still have your Beastclaw Raiders? How do you like them under more tribes? I do have my Beastclaw Raiders, mate. Thanks for coming in, by the way. I do have my Beastclaw Raiders. None of the Beastclaw Raiders that I had in my warband are in Warcry for more tribes. I don't really play AOS anymore, to be fair, so I've not really ran them with that. I did pick up the Feast of Bones set, and I've been building up the ogres that's in there to use as a Warcry set, so I've got a few more kind of now. So I've probably got enough to kind of give the more tribes a run out, but I haven't played AOS in quite some time, buddy. Kelly says, I think the terrain and Warcry box and the entire context of that starter box is one of the best. I agree, and it's something I would say that Vanguard probably is missing. If you think of the success of the Kings of War 3rd edition starter box, it was a real shame that Vanguard didn't get the same. If we had a couple of those starter packs with a little bit of kind of battlefield terrain, if you like, and a rule book in there and the dice, that would have been a really, really kind of I think it would have just kind of maybe pulled in a few new players. I think you can never really underestimate the power of a starter box for people kind of taking a punt and getting into a game. They know they've got everything they need to play the game. If you have to go in and buy kind of just, I know you can go in and buy whatever you want, but sometimes that can be a bit more confusing. You almost need to have bought the rule book first to see what you need, and that's not always the easiest route in. Gillian saying, my issue with Mantic is the mixed materials they force upon you. Trying to make resin, metal and plastic work together sucks. I wouldn't. Once they're painted, you don't really notice it. I've got warbands upstairs which have a mixture of resin, plastic and metal in them, and you don't really notice once they're painted, to be fair. But I do know what you mean. Like, and again, it's to do with kind of with volume, to do with, like, they need to be selling high volumes of stuff to make getting plastic models for each of these different individual models to make that worthwhile. And unfortunately, where the volume of that doesn't make sense, they're going to be resin. I don't think they really do any metal anymore now. I think that some of the older models are metal, but I don't think I don't think they do much metal now, if at all. So it's just a case of they're not as big a company. So when it comes to kind of individual hero models, they're not going to sell a lot of those in comparison to like a standard line troop, something that you'll probably use in Kings of War, where you'll field 40 of them, for example, in a horde, and you might have 2 or 3 hordes of them. So it's just an economics of scale type thing, I think. Where are we at? Busey saying there, one thing you do need for these games is the BlackJack folding gaming table. You could probably get away with it on a kitchen table or a dining table made for these 2 games, to be fair. Let's have a look. We've got William... that must have jumped a bit higher there. William Jones is in as well. Says, Orcs are a good list in Vanguard. There are no Vanguard-specific minis for them, though. That's why they're not on the shop, mate. That's why they're not in there, isn't it? I forgot about that bit. Charles is in as well. He says all of the Vanguard war lists are available for free from Mantic's website, as well as the rules, but they're missing the scenarios and the equipment. Yes, that's right. So if you want the 12 scenarios and you want all of the campaign stuff, you do have to pick up this book. Matthew Wilkinson saying one thing about Warcry is that I'm stuck setting up terrain that they sell and how it's set up on the cards. You don't have to do that, to be fair, mate. You're only doing that because you're abiding by the cards. You could just set it up however you like. I guess that they're just there just to kind of try and generate a bit of fun, really. But so you don't have to do it if you don't want to, mate. Battle Knights is in. Hello, mate. How are you doing? Says he missed everything, was watching the footy. Mike G's in. Says they only put the war brands in the main book that Mantic actually makes model for. No, yes, sorry, they do, mate. That's where I got mixed up. I was literally looking down the website there, and I was trying to think, why is there not more in there? It kind of completely escaped my mind of why that was. Mark Colley saying, Orcs, you see it? I'm in. Red Rose Wargaming's in. Good evening, Anna. How are you doing? Saying, evening all. Sorry, I missed the start of the stream. Ended up working late. Well, I hope it wasn't too bad a shift in that case. It's Big Ian says, evening as well. Dice Tale says in the terrain cards are suggestions and not compulsory. Of course, mate. Battle Knight says, you enjoyed Chronicles then? You can... Well, that way. You can see it behind me, mate. I was going to touch on that now. Well, and I guess, tell me now, we're getting on for 10 past 10, actually. So there was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. So I'll kind of round this one up now. So, in summary, both games are very good games. I've played both. I enjoy both. I've probably played more Warcry recently just because Warcry was newer and that was what I was getting into. I do love Games Workshop models in general. I love the Games Workshop terrain, and that starter set was a fantastic entry point to get in there, get 2 starter sets, get the rules, get everything you needed to play was in that box. The board, the terrain, 2 war bands, the rules, the cards, everything you needed. It was a fantastic way into the game. Vanguard doesn't have that. You have to have a little bit of knowledge about Vanguard and know what you want to buy. That said, if you're looking for something much kind of a bit more deep and crunchy in the rules, crunchy is maybe not the right word, but if you're looking for something deeper in your rule set, things with sort of facing, line of sight are important, shooting and melee is judged differently, being kind of locked into combat, things like being able to fatigue the models, to push them that little a bit harder, then Vanguard is a really good option. If you like things like Necromunda, if you like things like maybe like Frostgrave, Mordheim, and you think that potentially Warcry doesn't give you that, it doesn't give you that kind of old school feel, if you like, Vanguard is probably worth a try. If you just want a very, very straightforward, simple rule set that you can drop in and out of whenever you feel like it, don't feel like you have to kind of commit to a campaign or anything like that, Warcry is potentially the better option. I like to play a bit of both. I played a lot of Vanguard when it was first out. I've played a lot of Warcry since Warcry came out. I'll probably start to mix and match and kind of do bits and pieces on both of them now from a personal gaming experience. So when I say Vanguard versus Warcry, it's not about which is the best. I think they scratch different itches is the main point. There is an audience for both of these games, and I wouldn't. What I would suggest was, if you've enjoyed Warcry, but you're looking for something with a little bit more punch, give Vanguard a try. The rules are free. You can probably use your Warcry models in Vanguard as proxies just to try it out. Just give it a go and see what you think. Yes, so Battle Knights there. You're just asking, mate, if I enjoyed Chronicles of Crime. So I basically completely different topic now. So board games. Me and my wife play a lot of board games. We like to play a lot of co-op type stuff. We've played recently one of the exit games, and like if we just want to have one game on a night time, sort of by the time the little one goes to bed, we have dinner. We've probably going to have an early night because we've got to go early for work the next morning. We've probably got like an hour or two to play a board game. And we tend to like to play things like Pandemic Legacy, things like Carcassonne, things like the exit games. So I said we've got a night on Sunday. I'll buy another one of those exit games, and we'll have a game of that. So it started off when I'm looking online. Exit games are like 13 quid, something like that. And then they do another exit game, which is like 2 scenarios, which was like 20 quid. And it was like, oh, shall I get that one? And then I remembered I'd kept going on about, that way, Chronicles of Crime. I kept going on about it. And I said, look, it's only like 25 quid, 24 quid. Why don't I get that instead? So I ordered it. It came on Sunday. We played through it last night. As a game, it is very, very different to stuff you've played before. It's very much an app-driven game. So you're basically scanning for clues. You're actually looking at at a kind of like not a video, but like a 360-degree sort of scene, if you like. If you're looking at the crime scene, looking to see what you can see in the crime scene. It's quite hard to kind of describe, really. But if you're not into games that have a digital element into them, forget this game. Regardless of whether I tell you how good it is or not, if you're not into that kind of digital crossover, forget this game, because it is driven from a phone. It's driven by the app. If you don't mind that crossover, if you're into these kind of Fantasy Flight games where the app basically like kind of adds something to the game, this is definitely worth a go. Definitely worth a go. We played through this the tutorial scenario. We played through the first scenario of one of the crimes that you have to solve. You don't even have to read the rule book. The game teaches you as you play. And because it's driven by the app, you can't really do something wrong. Like you can't get a rule wrong because it doesn't allow you to do that. And I find that really helpful if you've got a group of people together to play a game for the first time. It's not one of those games where somebody has to go away and learn the rules before you can sit and play. So it's not that kind of moment of like everybody's trying to learn a game, if you like. And you're sitting around going, oh, well, where's that in the rule book? How do I do that? It was just a really, really good cooperative experience. And I can see how using the base game for lots of different expansions as well really does kind of add to that. So there's I think it's called Noir. There's an expansion which is kind of very much kind of if you've seen like L.A. Noire the game, think that kind of era. And then there is I forget what it's called, something about Redwell or something like that, but it's almost a bit of a Scooby-Doo type kind of like, you know, like the camp, what's it called again? I'm trying to think of that. I think it's the Friday the 13th films. Not Friday the 13th. What's the other one? Jason Voorhees, what's he in again? He's in the other one. Forgot what it's called now. Not Friday the 13th. Is it Friday? Yes, it is Friday the 13th. It's Halloween's the other one I'm thinking of. That kind of like that kind of kids camp type thing. And that seems pretty cool as well. They've got a Kickstarter coming out, Camp Crystal Lake. Thank you, Timbo. Now I can tell that the delay is not as slow now. I can actually get answers to where I'm worried about. So basically, what was I just talking about? Yeah, they've got a Kickstarter coming soon as well, where there's going to be 3 new standalone versions. There's a one set in the 1400s, one set in the 1900s, and one set in the 2400s, I think it is. So kind of like a real mix of kind of backgrounds in that as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more about them. Price-wise, they're not... I think I've read as well that they're going to be relatively kind of competitively priced. Think around... And this is not me saying from any previous knowledge, but just from what I've read, around the £30 kind of stage. So not a lot of investment. And because they're app-driven as well, it's easy for the company to kind of come up with new scenarios and pop them onto either an online store or feed them out as free content. So yeah, really, really, really good game. Me and my wife both enjoyed it. looking forward to playing the next scenario because I felt the need to not try and just push through them and play them all in one go because we really enjoyed it. Actually, the first time we played it, we didn't really solve the crime completely correctly. So we went back and we played it again to try and see what we'd missed. Because you can just click on the solution at the end and it will tell you the story and you'll go, oh, that was the reason behind it kind of thing. But we decided not to do that. We decided to go back, reset and do it again and try and see what we'd missed. And I found that quite good. I found that quite interesting as well. So yeah, big thumbs up from me. We're going to be chatting about it on the podcast. So we're going to be recording the first podcast episode, which will be up in the Patreon group in March. So if you're a Patreon at $5 and above, you're also going to get access now to a monthly podcast, which will be on a variety of different subjects. So for example, when I'm in Adepticon in a few weeks' time, I'm going to try and do some recording with different bits of people there as well. That'll give me a little bit of a buffer going forward. I'm going to record some with my wife as well about the board games that we're playing, about why we prefer co-op games versus kind of player versus player or adversarial games. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please do check the Patreon stuff out. Where are we at? It's Big Ian says, oh no, I think you just sold me on Vanguard. Sorry, buddy, if that just cost you. Where are we at? Paolo said, I have one of the exit games, but haven't played it yet. We played, have I got it behind me? I think it's the Secret Lab one we've got. Yes. So, we played this one, Exit, the Secret Lab. The only problem with these games are they are really, really good. And my wife really enjoyed the fact that there's a real mixture of different types of puzzles in there as well, different things to solve. The problem with these is, once you've played them, you can't play them again. You can't hand them off to somebody else. So even if you knew all the answers, it's not even like you can give them to somebody else. There's things that you have to kind of write on. There's things you have to kind of destroy to play the games. So that's the one downside of that one. The Chronicles of Crime, on the other hand, you don't destroy anything on the game. Basically, what I will say, I just want to show you something that I was actually very, very impressed with, which is complete. It's a bit sad, but there you go. It's just the way the game is packaged. So inside there is there's this little plastic cover, and I'm trying to do it so I can see it on camera. How this kind of clips off here. So it's actually kind of, it pops in to hold all of the cards, apart from them ones, to hold all of the cards in place. And then there's spaces inside the box where you can put the expansions in as well. So it all ends up going inside one box, which I thought was, you can tell that it's been done as a kind of a Kickstarter with the expansions in mind, because it's had the kind of the foresight to kind of think about where everything needs to go. So let's just put that back up on there. So yeah, really enjoyed it. One to kind of check out, I think, if you're into those kind of cooperative social deduction. The app's really good as well. It puts a bit of pressure on you as well. Mark saying he just needs some terrain. Loves the SP stuff for it. But looking at making his own, I think he's talking about Burrows and Badgers there. Jason the Battle Knight is there saying you can rough the perps up in the Noir one. It's set in Paris. Oh, I didn't realise it was set in Paris, mate. We'll have to pick that up at some point. Paulo said, have fun at Adepticon, mate. Yes, I do intend to, mate. Kelly says, I was going to ask if you were coming to Adepticon. I need to bring a Warcry warband and catch a game. Kelly, I will be bringing a warband. I've already promised. You might know Darcy Bono, who is she's quite a well-known kind of painter on Instagram and stuff. I think she's quite often in the Warcry groups as well. Her painting is fantastic. She's already contacted me and said she wanted a game of Warcry as well. So I am bringing a warband with me. So if you have access to a board and some terrain, I will certainly play it. That would be good to get some games in. Paolo saying, if you are interested, just drop me a note, either in Facebook Messenger or something like that, or in the community tab on YouTube or something like that. I don't mind having a game. I'll play any games with anybody, that's for sure. Paulo saying he's got the Abandoned Cabin game. I think it was the Orient Express one we were going to pick up when I last minute changed my mind and got Chronicles of Crime. Jason saying he's coming to Newcastle in August for a couple of days. We should meet up for a game. 100%, mate. Yeah, make sure you let me know when, because actually we're... Mark saying stop scratching your tie. It's actually quite itchy because I think it's where I've got a wooden table here, and I think it's when I'm kind of rubbing it on the... I think it's where I'm rubbing it on the table, mate. Sorry. Yes, we're on holiday, I think, June time, mate. So yeah, we'll be at home during August. So yes, please do keep in touch, mate, and we'll sort that out. What else was I wanted to talk about? Yes, the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was this. So I recently downloaded this, as in like as recently as Friday. Or was it? No, Saturday I got it. Saturday I downloaded it. Wanted to play a few games to get my head around it and stuff. And to see if anybody else had picked it up as well. I know a few people in my Patreon group, we've been chatting about it and stuff. I know Sean's got it. I think there's a few others have been saying that they've picked it up as well. So I'm thinking about potentially, I don't know whether we're going to just do this with a Patreon group to keep the numbers kind of down or whatever, but I think we might do some live stream stuff with this at some point. Let me just play this in the background while we're chatting. I think we might do this as kind of so maybe some live stream games. I'm potentially going to try and get a live stream game with the guys from Agents of Sigmar, or maybe try and live stream something like that as well. But I think it'd be cool even just kind of like offline, like in the background, not on the streams here, but just to play some games with the folks in the BlackJack community and stuff. So if you have picked up this game, if you look for me on Steam, my name on Steam is BlackJack Legacy. You'll soon find me. Feel free to send me a friend request and let me know who you are. And I'm happy to kind of to hook up and play some games with folks, really. So who knows? We might potentially do a bit of a league or something like that, or a bit of an online tournament or something like that. So yeah, it's the game in the UK is £24, I think. It's in early access. I'm not affiliated with it or anything like that. I've bought it for myself just to kind of to play it. You get the choice of 4 warbands for in that, and I think they've got some extra skins that they get as well. Universal cards are going to be free, and down the line there will be some kind of pay for DLC with extra warbands, a little bit like the game. But the game itself is exactly the same as the board game. It just automates a lot of the kind of the shuffling and stuff like that. But it actually plays pretty decent. They've had a few updates which have speeded it up recently. So yeah, it seems to be getting there anyway. It seems to be getting there. Glyn says, thanks for the natter. Good stream as always. Good night all. Take care and enjoy your hobby. Thank you, Glyn. Timbo saying, I'll give you a game. Cheers, buddy. I'll have a game with you. And Peter says a PC struggles playing solitaire. Yeah, I've got a laptop that I tried to play it on sitting in bed the other night, and that was struggling, to be fair. Like, so yeah, it'll have to be on the PC, I think. Kelly says, gotta run, have a great night. Thank you, Kelly. Speak soon. Yeah, the only other thing, a couple of things, we did briefly touch on White Dwarf, which has just arrived in my house this morning. And in White Dwarf, you get the rules for Fire Slayers. So it has the abilities in here, and then it shows you basically, if I can just flip it over, it shows you the 2 pages of the cards as well. Now, disappointingly that they're not proper cards. It would have been nice if the cards had come in the magazine as a bit of a one-off thing. Also, disappointingly, the abilities cards and the one set of the other cards are on the back of the same page, so it's not even like you can just cut them out and like stick a card or something like that. You're going to have to photocopy these things, or you're going to have to just basically take the White Dwarf to a game with you if you like. Bit of a shame, but reading through the rules, I'm not blown away. There's nothing that stands out in them. They're quite slow. They're probably costed right, but they're just not. There's nothing too exciting about them at the moment. And I think the problem with the Fire Slayers is the models all look very, very similar. So you basically get the choice of, you get the Hearthguard Berserkers, which are basically ginger bearded guys with like axes. There is the Auric Hearthguard, which are ginger bearded guys with slightly different kind of axes. And then there's Volkite Berserkers, which are ginger bearded guys with small axes. So it's not going to be that easy to tell them apart on the table, I don't think, if you paint them all kind of with that ginger hair. So yeah, I've got the Underworld's warband thing for them. So I've got a few, but there's not going to be enough there, I think, to run a warband. I think I'm going to stick with probably Sylvaneth might be the next one I pick up, I think. So, yeah. Mark's saying it is PC. It is PC only, mate. Yeah, I looked to see if I could get it on Apple as well, on Mac. But no, PC only, mate. Timbo says, best description of a set of models ever. Yes, that's it, mate. Ginger dude with an axe, ginger dude with a big axe, ginger dude with a different axe. Christian says, important question, when is the Tabletop Legacy Weekend of 3? And if not that, then when is the first BlackJack Legacy Game and Getaway? We've not, I'll be completely honest, Jay and I have chatted about it in the past. We tried to set, we were kind of coming up with a couple of potential dates. Didn't really work for one of us or the other. I think the date that we kind of came up with clashed with the Mantic Kings of War day that I've got arranged at the end of April. We've not managed to settle on a date, mate, and it's kind of drifting away, to be honest. So at the minute, there is no plans for a third one. We've not gone any further talking about it at the moment. When's the first BlackJack Legacy Game and Getaway? I will steal that. I will steal that title, mate, if I do it. At the minute, I'm concentrating on getting the stream, on getting the channel going full time and stuff, and that's kind of where my energy is at the minute. And I think if I focus too much on anything else, I'll get sidetracked a little bit, and it'll maybe kind of like it'll waver from what my direction is at the moment. But it's something I want to get back to. I love those weekenders, and I think we will at some point do something. But there's nothing on the cards at the minute, mate. Matthew says, great stream. Thank you very much, buddy. Zingbo says, are you saying they all look the same to you? That's dwarfism. It's nothing to do with the height, mate. That's for sure. I wonder if it. I won't. Oh, I can't. I don't have it on my. I've took the picture on my phone, so I can't really show it on the screen. Oh, actually, can I? Let me have a quick look, because I might have put a picture. Let me just very quickly, if I can find it. If I can find the picture that I put, because you can't share. There's 113 comments in that post I put on the Warcry group today, and now the admin's locked the comments. If I can find the picture quickly, where is it? No, I don't think I can find it, folks. I don't know whether somebody's deleted it. I did share a picture of the actual just the models that you can get. Oh, hang on, I shared it on Twitter as well. Let me see if I can find it on here. But I wonder if it'll even let me log in. Oh, it's not even. Hang on. No, it's trying to send me different codes and stuff. Let's not worry about it. Basically, the models don't look that different, and I think it'll be quite difficult to tell them apart on the table. But I'm old. What do I know? Tom the Bomb says, "What was the space game you mentioned earlier?" It was Star Breach, mate. Yeah, the folks are telling you there as well. Steve is saying, "Slow grow day. Any more details yet, mate?" I need to speak to the Mantic guys. I must admit the date's fixed, but we've not sorted any details, and it's not too far away now, is it? Yeah, leave it with me, and we'll get something sorted, mate. Coxie's saying, "Great stream, mate. Catch you all in the Discord." Yes, see you in the Discord, mate. Take care. Lever says, "Are you going to UK Games Expo this year, Andy?" Yes, I am, mate. I've just been told about it today, actually, because I need to book a hotel, which I haven't done yet. But yeah, I'm planning. I normally go down on the Thursday for the press night the night before, but I've been a bit disappointed with the last two press nights. It's not been anything kind of too special, if you like. So I think I'm just going to come down on the Friday morning this time, early doors, and just have the Friday and Saturday night, I think, and head back home on the Sunday. So if you're around, mate, please do give us a shout, and it'll be nice just to say hi face to face. Claudio says, "If there'll be a dead zone, I'd come to the next weekender. Managed to glue several pieces while we were laying around. Which were laying around for some time. Really glad I made it today. Good being back. Nice to have you back, Claudio, as well. I know I saw a post that you'd put on Facebook where you've been really busy with a dissertation. So yeah, good to see you back, mate. Good to see you back and chatting. Was there anything else I want to talk about? Very, very, very quickly, just with the Patreon stuff, I think it was as well. So as you all know, and Christian's been sharing it for me tonight as well, the Patreon group is growing from strength to strength now. These are the folks that are kind of believing what I'm trying to do, taking this channel full time. And I want to say is that I am definitely going full time with the channel. It's not a case of like, oh well, if I can do this and if I can do that, I might be able to do it in the future. It's definitely happening this year. The plan at the moment, everything's going to plan. The plan will be to go full time in September, and that's because I've got to give 3 months notice at work to kind of hand things in. And in the meantime, between now and that point, I am saving up money to have a financial buffer to kind of support me from going from a full-time wage to essentially like next to nothing, less than a minimum wage. But it's enough to pay the bills. That's what I'm trying to do. So any support I get from donations on live streams, any support I get from your support in Patreon will basically be my wage. That'll be my salary. I'm not going to do any paid for videos. So for example, if I'll say Games Workshop because they don't do that. If Games Workshop came to me and said, we'd quite like to pay you to do a video for us on your channel and see how good our stuff is. I like a paid review, if you like. I'm not going to do any paid reviews because I think that will it instantly makes people think doubtful that I'm being honest about an opinion because I'm being paid to make the video. So I've decided I don't want to do that. That means that I can only, if I can't be paid by the games companies, I can only be paid by the viewers. And the way I'm doing that is through Patreon. So if you're not a fan of Patreon, I apologize. It's just the only kind of platform that really allows me to do that. I'm fortunate. I think we've got about 44 people in the Patreon group now who have been supporting me now, some for quite some time as well. I appreciate everything that they've done. And when I get to the point where I basically move away from a full-time job to doing this full-time, the amount of content that I can do will kind of multiply very, very quickly because I just then have the time to do it. So instead of having a full day at work and then coming home and putting my little one to bed and making dinner with my wife and seeing my wife because she's been away for days on end and that kind of stuff, I basically have all day to create content. And that's exactly what I always wanted to do. So if you are interested in supporting that longevity of it, if you think about people like Guerrilla Miniature Games, he operates on a very, very similar thing that basically he isn't paid for his content from the games he plays. He's paid for by the Patreons and the people that watch it. So if you kind of like what he does and you'd like to try and support me to do the same thing, then I really would appreciate if you check out the Patreon page. You can do a one-off payment there. Pledges start from as little as $2 a month, and the more you pledge, the more basically benefits that you get back. So please do check out the Patreon if you'd like to support me and the future of the BlackJack Legacy channel. So, where we are on the chat there, Lee saying it's lucky enough to get reasonably priced rooms in the Hilton this year. I was just looking at the Hilton today, mate, actually, and it was, how much was it now? I think it was about 200 quid a night, which is not too cheap. So yeah, I stayed on site last year at the Crown Plaza, and it was much nicer being there. It meant I could have a few beers, I could play games till late, and then just wander around basically back to my hotel. And I'd like to do that again this year, rather than having to drive or taxi back to my hotel, which is quite some distance away to get something cheap enough. So unless I win the lottery or something like that, I think I might be staying a little bit further away, I think. But I'll keep an eye out for hotels. Claudio says, "Way to go, Andy! Onward, BlackJack Legion." Yes, I've never really kind of spoke about it outside of these live streams, really, but it's happening. It is actually a reality, and it will be happening this year now. So it's just a matter of time, really. That basically, like I say, I've got to give a notice period at work, and I also have to. I'm just building up that financial buffer so that basically, if something happens 1 month, and then if all my Patreons disappear 1 month, it gives me a little bit of a buffer to go and find a job, basically, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm just being I'm being honest. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm building up a financial buffer to give me some breathing space, to give me the time to then dive in and do this full time. So yeah, exciting times ahead. So on that note, on that positive note, I will I thank everybody for coming in tonight. I think John Kellogg, I must have missed as well there, has just pledged to Patreon as well. Thank you very much, buddy. Really do appreciate that. Yeah, so thanks everybody for coming in, and I will see you all in next Monday's. Please see in 45. I'll see you all in next Monday's live stream. Thanks for watching.